Welcome to Theology Explained for Beginners. Our new topic is about Fatima. The Fatima apparition happened in 1917. The apparition happened in Portugal in a town called Fatima. A beautiful lady, more brilliant than the sun, appeared to three children. These three children came from a poor family, and on that day they were tending the sheep. The youngest, Jacinta, likes dancing, and before the apparition, she was like a typical little girl. She was self centered. But after the apparition, she became selfless. She was more concerned with saving souls, and she became more prayerful. She even sacrificed a lot for others. She sacrificed her lunch, um, her food, so that she can offer it to the to other people. And she also fasts, so and offer this up to God in order to save souls. Presently, if you go to Fatima now, you can still see the house of Jacinta, and uh, that is the one that is seen in this picture. A lot of pilgrims go and visit there. This picture was taken outside of that house with the three visionaries: Jacinta, the youngest, Francisco in the middle, and Lucia, who is who is their cousin, is the eldest. So that picture was actually taken somewhere there in front of their house. Inside the house, you can also see the room of Jacinta. This is her bed. Francisco is the elder brother of Jacinta. He is known as a quiet child, and before the apparition, um, Francisco um, likes very much animals, especially birds. This is the picture of the two, um, Jacinta and her brother Francisco. Here is a close-up picture of the two of them, Francisco and his younger sister Jacinta. After the apparition, Francisco did not want anymore to go to school. He would just, he said that what's the use of going to school if it will be in a short while he would be going to heaven. So he did not see anymore the reason why he should go to school. What he did was he he asked his sisters to go to school and just to leave him behind. And when his sister and his cousin Lucia would arrive from school in the afternoon, they would see Francisco praying, and often the position that they would see, the prayer position that they would see, is like this one that you see in this picture. Also, after the apparition, Francisco would wait for his sister and his cousin Lucia from school. He would also wait for them here in the church, and he would be praying all day. And he would console the heart of Jesus, because according to him, Jesus, who is hidden in the Eucharist, is already so much offended by the sins of man. And that's why he would like to accompany Jesus and console the heart of Jesus, praying all day in the church for many hours. Here you can see a sign that tells you when you are about to enter the room of Francisco in the same house as the house of Jacinta, because they are brother and sister. So this is the room of Francisco, and this is his bed. So again, this is the room of Francisco. This one is the picture of their kitchen, and then there is a secret door going up to the roof, going up to the attic. This is a secret door where the two brother and sister would hide when the people would come and look for them. Now, this is Lucia, the eldest of the three. She is the cousin of Francisco and Jacinta. She is the only one who hears the Virgin Mary speaks during the apparition. So this is Lucia in the middle, and this picture is she is with Francisco and Jacinta. And this is another picture of them. Now, this picture shows us the house of Lucia. It's not in the same neighborhood. It's a little farther away. And you can see this is the house of Lucia. This is the kitchen of the house. And you can see how poor the family is. This is the bedroom of Lucia. The first apparition of Fatima appeared on May 13, 1917. And the apparition would again appear 1 month later on the same day, 13th. So every 13th for May, June, July, August, September, October. So until October, every 13th of the month, there is an apparition, and the children would see the Virgin Mary. Now, on August 13, 1917, as the children became more popular, uh, they, however, were kidnapped by a government official, a mayor of Orem, whose name is Arthur de Oliveira Santos. Uh, he did not believe in any religion. He was a Freemason, and so he kidnapped the three children. So because the children were kidnapped on August, by the time when there was a fourth apparition of the Virgin Mary, the children were not able to come because the children were imprisoned by the government official, the mayor of Orem. So the children were imprisoned, and they were also threatened by the mayor. The mayor heard from other people that the Virgin Mary told the children three secrets, and so the mayor asked the children to tell him what the secret was. But the children refused to tell the secret to the mayor. And so the mayor threatened the children that they would be killed, and they would be placed in a boiling oil. And then so he thought that the children would give in and the children would tell him what the three secrets were. But the children, although one by one they were threatened by this um, penalty of death, the children never gave in to the demands of the evil mayor. The children were later released by the mayor, and so by the time when it was already October 13, 1917, there was a previous announcement from the children that the Virgin Mary had promised, had agreed that there will be a miracle that will happen on this day, October 13, 1917. And so there were huge crowd, around 70,000 people, waiting for the miracle that the Virgin Mary would show as proof that the message of Fatima was true. And so it was raining hard, and yet the people came because they were expecting that the miracle would come on this day, October 13, 1917. So this is a picture, an old picture of that day before the miracle. And this is the another picture during the miracle. As you can see, the picture, they were already dried up because of the miracle of the sun. Uh, Everything, their clothes, their shoes, the ground was dried up after the miracle of the sun. During the miracle and after the miracle of the sun, everything was dried up. Now, let's discuss about the miracle. According to Lucia, the people saw the miracle of the sun. So the people saw the miracle of the sun. The sun was dancing. It grew bigger and bigger. But the children, according to Lucia, did not saw the miracle of the sun. While looking at the sky, the children saw visions of Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. So the children saw a different thing. It's not the sun. While the people saw the sun, the children saw a different thing. They saw they saw a vision of Mary, Jesus, and Joseph. So according to Lucia, uh, sh- she saw Jesus. She also saw the Virgin Mary. And then in another vision, she said that she also saw the Holy Family, the Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, and the child Jesus. In another vision, she saw the Virgin Mary wearing the Carmelite clothes. Now let's back up a little and let's go back to July 13, 1917. During this apparition, the Virgin Mary revealed to the three children three secrets. And let's discuss these three secrets one by one. The first secret was the vision of hell. So the children were allowed to see what hell looked like. And so the children, of course, they got scared because of what they saw. And this is what the Virgin Mary told the children. You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wishes to establish a devotion to my Immaculate Heart. And so this vision of the hell really affected the children, that they really wanted to do everything that they can in their own way to save as many souls as they can. And yet in the vision, they saw so many souls going to hell. And that was the first that was the first secret that was revealed in Fatima to the children. The second secret to Fatima was that there would be an end to the war going on and to the World War One. Just a background: World War One happened in 1914 to 1918, and in this war, there were around 40 million died around the world. So, in the second secret, uh, the Virgin Mary told the children that there would be an end in the first war, the First World War One, and if the people would continue in their evil ways, the Virgin Mary warned, and telling the children that there would be a new war, another world war, which is already the Second World War, and this war would even be greater and would kill more people than the first war. She also gave a warning that before this war would happen, remember, this was 1917. Uh, the Second World War would start in 1939. So there was already, the Virgin Mary was already telling the children that there would be a war in as early as 1917. And the Virgin Mary told the children that before the war would come, there would be a warning, in the sky, and the people would know that this warning would is already the war would already be coming to them. So this warning in the sky is what we call now as the Northern Lights or the Aurora Borealis. This actually is a natural phenomenon in the northern part of Europe, in somewhere in the Netherlands. But during this particular night, a few months before World War II started, this phenomenon of the Northern Lights covered the whole Europe, the whole European skies, and so that part is not natural because it spread throughout the whole European continent. And so that was the warning that there will come uh, a Second World War. A little background: World War II started in 1939, it ended in 1945, and it killed almost over 60 to 80 million people in this war. And so we already have the first and second secret. Also, the Virgin Mary told the children that there will be a rise in communism. The Virgin Mary requested the children to tell the church to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart. Tell the church to consecrate Russia to the Immaculate Heart, and so that Russia will be converted. Now, Russia during this time was a poor nation. Uh, Russia was not yet communist. Russia had a religion, Orthodox Church, but the church during this time did not consecrate Russia because the church did not see the threat in Russia, because Russia during this time was a poor nation. But months later, there was a revolution that happened in Russia, and the monarchy was thrown out, and that started the communism movement in Russia. So, as told by the Virgin Mary, that the church should consecrate in this time, during their time, Russia as early as back then, 1917, to consecrate Russia so that Russia will not spread its error. But the church did not believe the children, so this is what happened to Russia. Russia became a communist, and Russia spread its errors throughout the whole world. Communism spread throughout the whole world. And as you know, communism do not believe in God. So we have the first secret and then the second secret. The third secret is about PayPal assassination. So this PayPal assassination was seen by the children in a vision. The children did not know who this uh, PayPal or Pope will be assassinated. They did not know who it was. They do not know the date, but they just saw in a vision that a bishop dressed in white, just like a pope, was assassinated in their vision. Now, this papal assassination was fulfilled in May 13, 1981. So many years have gone passed by. The vision of the three secrets were actually forgotten, and then all the while, suddenly in May 13, 1981, there was an assassination attempt on the life of the Pope. Now we'll go back later on that topic of the assassination. Let's take a look at what happened to the children after the last apparition. So the children became more and more popular. They were always in the headlines in their local newspapers. And so this is an enhanced picture of the three children in color. So let's make a summary. What happened to the children? Francisco was the first one to pass away. The Virgin Mary told them that it will be Francisco who will be taken to heaven first, just 1 year after the apparition. At the age of 10, Francisco passed away first. So Francisco fell ill. He was not taken to the hospital. As you know, they were a very poor family, so he just stayed in his bed, and the family took care of him, and he died in his bed. Although he suffered a lot of pain because of his illness, he never complained about this illness and all the pain that he suffered. What he did was just to offer all these sufferings and pain that he felt. He offered it up to God for the salvation of the souls of other people. And so here we see the tomb of Francisco Marto in the church in Fatima. So the next one to pass away is Jacinta. She passed away at the age of 9. She was also told by the Virgin Mary that she would soon follow his brother. Um, the Virgin Mary asked her if she would be willing to sacrifice a little more for the sinners, and that sacrifice would involve her being taken to a hospital, and there she would die alone. So this little girl at the age of 9, of course, did not agree. She was afraid to die alone, but later on, um, she agreed because the Virgin Mary promised her that she would be the one who will fetch Jacinta when she died, and the Virgin Mary would take her personally to heaven. And that was the only time that Jacinta agreed to the condition of her death. So, indeed, that is what happened. Jacinta was taken to the city far from Fatima. She was taken to Lisbon, and this is where she went. And that window is the room where she stayed. Later on, she was taken to a hospital. Later on, she was taken to a hospital in Lisbon, Queen Stephanie's Hospital, where uh, medical staff took care of her. Uh, she fell very ill, and just like what she was told by the Virgin Mary, that later on she would die alone, and that is what happened to her. She fell very ill, and she died alone in a room without anyone to watch over her. But as promised by the Virgin Mary, before she, during her death, the Virgin Mary fetched her, and the Virgin Mary took her to heaven. So she died, and her soul uh, was with the Virgin Mary, and the Virgin Mary took her soul to heaven. Now, many years later, uh, the two children who died, their bodies were exhumed because they were in the process of being declared a saint. And so this was already many years later. As you can see, the parents of Jacinta and Francisco in the back, they are already early, in their late age. After the investigation, Jacinta was later on buried in this tomb inside the church. So you can see there the tomb of Jacinta Marto. The two children died. The Virgin Mary still appeared to Lucia. Now, what happened to Lucia after this? So, Lucia, who was born in 1907, became a nun. Lucia became a nun, and while in the convent, the bishop asked her to write everything down what happened to Fatima when they were still young. So, as per command by the bishop, Sister Lucia wrote everything down in her diary, and her diary was actually published and in a book entitled Fatima in Lucia's Own Words. And this is actually my reference for this video. So Lucia died in February 13, 2005 at the age of 97. This is her body on her death. So she was already 97 when she died. And now she is now buried there beside Jacinta in the same church. So the three children are buried inside the church in Fatima. Now, all the three visionaries have been already declared as saints by the church. The apparitions at Fatima have also been approved by the church. Now, earlier we were discussing about the three secrets of Fatima. Uh, the Virgin Mary told the children to tell the church to consecrate Russia, but the church did not actually do this. They did not consecrate Russia, and so Russia became a communist and spread its error throughout the world. Also, the third secret also happened because there was no the church did not follow the request of the Virgin Mary to consecrate Russia, and so the third secret happened. There was a papal assassination in May 13, 1981. So it happened to Pope John Paul II while he was in Rome, Vatican. A shooter, as you can see in this picture, holding a gun pointed at the of Pope John Paul II. So there was an assassin who shot John Paul II in Vatican, Rome. So these are some of the pictures. The assassin, as you can see, was a Turkish national. Later on, uh, this Turkish national, when the Pope got well, later on, uh, Pope John Paul II visited this assassin, and he forgave this assassin. According to Pope John Paul II, uh, he was saved by the hand of the Virgin Mary. Now, in the picture at the bottom, you can see the gun that was used, and also another picture in the bottom is the shirt that had the stain of blood of Pope John Paul II. Now, the bullet that was removed from the body of John Paul II, um, Pope actually placed it at the crown of the image of Fatima, of Our Lady of Fatima. So as you can see in this picture, there in the crown, inside, that is the bullet that was taken from the body of John Paul II. Now this crown is in display in the museum at Fatima. Now, Pope John Paul actually later on, after surviving the assassination attempt, later on consecrated uh, the whole world and Russia to the Immaculate Heart, together with the other bishops from around the world. And this happened in March 25, 1984, at the Feast of the Annunciation. John Paul II duly made the act of consecration in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome before the statue of Our Lady flown in from the site of the apparition at Fatima for this occasion. So the church did consecrate Russia at this point after the assassination attempt. So what happened after consecration? Many years later, so in 1981, the Soviet Union crumbled as predicted by Our Lady, that when the consecration would be done, Her Immaculate Heart will triumph. So in 1991, the Soviet Union crumbled and got separated. Now let's make a summary of the events of Fatima. So during this time in 1917, there was a war going on throughout the world, World War One. The government of Portugal became an anti-church institution. So this agency or institution uh, targeted the church in Portugal. Now, the apparitions happened starting in May 13, and every month on the 13th day there will be an apparition. And in October 13, 1917, the miracle of the sun happened. Now, later on, there would be a strange light in the sky in the northern hemisphere of Europe, and then afterwards, World War II begins. Russia spreads its error worldwide, and then assassination attempt of the Pope, consecration of Russia after this attempt by Pope John Paul II, who consecrated Russia in Rome. And then afterwards, the fall of communism, Russia is converted back to Christian Orthodoxy. Let's take a look at some of the pictures of Fatima today. If you go and visit Fatima today, so these are some of the pictures. You would see the actual site where the children also had a vision of an angel that appeared to them prior to the vision of the Virgin Mary. And this is now Fatima today. Before it was all grass for the sheep, but now it's all cemented, and there's now a big church there at the back in this picture. So these are some of the pictures taken in Fatima. Now going inside the church, this is the main church, and the altar, as you can see there, is in front. Now let's go back to the outside of the church. You can see that this is a very big complex. In the left side of the picture, you can see there a small structure, and that is actually the actual place where the apparition occurred. So this is the small structure that I told you, and this is where the actual apparition of the Virgin Mary happened. So during the time in 1917, the children saw the Virgin Mary in this spot where there was a small tree, and the Virgin would appear above this tree, small plant, small tree. So this is now uh, the actual spot. If you can see in the picture, the statue of the Virgin Mary of Our Lady of Fatima, that is the actual spot where the children saw the Virgin Mary. A closer picture, there is already a statue. This statue of Our Lady of Fatima is to remind the people that this is the actual spot where the Virgin Mary was seen by the children. So we are now outside of the church. So it's already well cemented, and a lot of people would visit this pilgrimage site. But during the time of the apparition, 1917, this is what it looked like. So it was grassland. It was not cemented, and there were 70,000 people who went there to watch the miracle of the sun. Now it's all cemented. So this picture is a modern day picture of Fatima, and usually a large crowd would gather if there is an anniversary of Fatima, and people would gather in this place to pray. So in one of those anniversaries of Fatima, a huge crowd would appear. In the background, at the top of the picture, you can see a new church around circular church is built there. At night, and the crowd would lit candles, and uh, this would be while praying the Holy Rosary. Now, the picture that we saw earlier, the round structure, the church at the back, this is the close-up of the church. It's actually a very big church, a new church. If you go inside this church, you can see this. It is a very huge church, and this is the altar inside the church. Now, what is interesting is that during this time, 1918, just 1 year after the apparition, there was a pandemic, a flu pandemic that occurred in this time. And there were millions who died because of this pandemic. As you can see, this pandemic, also known as Spanish flu, killed so many people, 50 million deaths worldwide. In the US alone, 675,000 deaths. So, this is very important for us in our time, that knowing this apparition very close to this pandemic, because in our time we also are encountering a pandemic, and so the bishops today in Fatima, they are there are 24 countries. The bishops of these 24 countries will consecrate to Jesus and to Mary. They are going to make a consecration because of this coronavirus pandemic in Fatima. 24 countries, so bishops from different countries. In Canada and in the US, the bishops there would also consecrate to Mary because of this pandemic. In Asia, Philippine bishops will also consecrate the whole nation to Mary. So the whole world is going to consecrate to the Virgin Mary this May 13, the anniversary of Fatima, May 13, 2020. So because of the coronavirus pandemic, bishops from around the world is going to consecrate to the Virgin Mary, so that the Virgin Mary will help us with this pandemic. Now that ends my topic about Fatima. If you want more topics about theology, please visit our YouTube channel, Theology Explained for Beginners. Thank you very much.